Meeting of the Greenways Commission of Greenways and Open Space Commission. I think we got to keep an eye on the other half of our responsibility. I think Cindy, if you are keeping the roll, we know that we have. I don't think we usually call the roll, but I think we can do that for the public's benefit. So, Tyler Yarborough, Joseph Lee, Sandy Ewing, here. Brenda Gilmore. Present. All right.
Present.
Okay. Yeah, Olivia. I didn't say your name first. Sorry, Olivia Hill, Jeannie Nelson,
Mark Richmond,
Jenny Welch,
Grant Woodrow.
Great. Fantastic. So, and Ed Henley, yes, Henley. Ed is our representative from the Parks Board. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. He does a lot of things that relate to Greenways. But this is a fabulous official ex officio membership. We love having you. So, everyone has a copy of the minutes and you receive them ahead of time. So are there any questions that anyone has? And if not, do I hear a motion? Move to approve. Okay, motion second, and all those in favor? Aye. Okay. The next part on our agenda is for public comment, and have we had anyone sign up or anyone here who came to speak but didn't sign up?
no one signed up.
Okay, so if we can let the record show about that. And as the commission knows, we always start our meeting with that opportunity, and people, I think that's on our agenda, right, Cindy, that goes out to the public so people know and can act accordingly. And so it's a good thing, and we keep the comments, unfortunately, for some projects to a very short amount of time, but that gives us the opportunity to follow up later and see what we can, how we can manage those particular wishes or comments. So I'm going to get started right away by turning this meeting over to the Assistant Director of Parks, Cindy Harrison, who is also the head of the Greenways Division of the Parks Department. And so, as you can see from our agenda, we're going to start with something that picks back up on the what I personally thought was a really great orientation session. And we had so many members and I think all of the new members of the commission at the orientation, except for maybe a emergency impossibility. So it was great. We got into a lot, and we will be having a follow-up for the person who couldn't come, and also as we welcome Councilman Clapp just arrived, so add that. So everybody will get a nickname, Jenny. Be careful. So we will have a follow-up orientation. Hopefully, we are missing, best we can tell, 2 mayoral positions and appointments, and so we haven't been able to track where that is in the works, but we're going to stay after that, and we're pretty close to having all of our ex officio appointments from departments in place, and Cindy's taking care of making sure we get that as soon as possible, because it's really important for our work. So we're going to start with a discussion of the process for design and construction of greenways. This picks up on some of our orientation and what especially council members, but really everyone who was at the orientation, we recognize that the more we can do to set a base of mutual knowledge about how greenways and open space work in the city and our role and our intersection, we're all going to be better commissioners and serve our role in a deeper way. So this is in part that, but and then following that will be Cindy talking about Greenways projects and doing some, again, in response to what we heard, but also as good practice, focusing on some of the, I'm not sure what word to put, either priority, bigger, most active projects, because there are so many projects in the works, and we could, if we don't have some focuses, we can get way down on the longer list. You will always have that longer list. You can always ask any question that you want about any of them. Cindy has remarkable amounts of information in her head, and often has some of the other members of her staff with her that can also respond. And then, of course, we're going to hear from Greenways for Nashville, our fabulous nonprofit partner, and then whatever departments might be here. And then this is just kind of the way we're organizing the agenda from here. And then we'll have a chairman's report. And as a part of that, certainly any things that are on any of your mind that you want to be sure we do, and we at upcoming meetings that are the most helpful to you, so you can be the best advocates, ambassadors, and voices in moving Greenways forward, and Greenways and open space. Here, I've got to get the long one in there for now. So, Cindy, I'm going to turn it over to you to
thank
take us forward.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for everyone showing up. It's awesome. Glad to see you all. Thanks for Sandy making sure I had the right month on our presentation today. I'm going to dive right in. Just reminding everyone where we are right now with our greenways, and we'll do a deeper dive here in a few minutes, but just wanted to get this in front of you that we have 16 greenway segments, and which is includes 11, almost 12 miles of greenways in design or final permitting right now, 10 greenway segments, and 1.71 miles under construction. We acquired a little under 38 acres of open space last year, and currently we are actively acquiring 37 easement acquisitions and just over 175 acres of open space. Along with partnership with Greenways for Nashville, 30 of our Greenway trailheads are under reconstruction, which is a fabulous project. So just putting that in your mind as we go forward. I'm not going to read through all these because I'm going to talk in detail on some of them. But as Jeannie mentioned, you'll have this list. And if you have questions, certainly ask me. But these are projects that are underway right now. And I actually added a mile in there. I think I had left that off the front cover, but 12.62 miles in design and permitting. So wanted to talk a little more about the process of developing greenways. We often hear, why does it take so long to develop a greenway? You're standing on it, and hopefully when you're out there on a greenway, it looks beautiful, it looks inviting and easy, right? Hopefully it doesn't look like it was a struggle to get it built, or that there's anything wrong with it, that you just go out and enjoy it. But behind the scenes, there's a lot of work that goes on with a lot of folks. And so just kind of wanted to touch on that a little bit more than we have in the past. So we're going to highlight, as far as our publicly funded capital greenway projects. We'll start with those. I'm going to highlight the Whites Creek Greenway at Hartman Park because that's one that we've just recently started. And so I think it's really relevant. the first thing we have to do if we're going to build a greenway, aside from having funding, is have the right to be on the land where we want to build the greenway. So we can be there through an easement or through ownership or even through a license agreement. Typically, our license agreements would be with an agency or an institution such as TDOT, and that's the case with our 440 Greenway, but not this Greenway. This Greenway is being developed on Metro-owned property that was acquired by Metro Water Services through the volunteer FEMA flood buyout program. So these were properties that either flooded back in 2010 or continually see flooding. I don't pretend to know all the details on that program because it is managed by Metro Water Services, but they've been great partners with us. So what that does, in this case, is lets us skip the cost of land acquisition. And that's huge. It saves time, obviously saves money. I think there's 40 some odd acres here in this collective group of parcels. It's a volunteer buyout program. And I believe 3 or 4 of these parcels were actually owned by Piedmont Gas, natural gas. Those were turned over to Metro after they finished a gas line improvement project. So this case, great scenario where we didn't have to purchase the property. If we did, there's an extensive process I think that you're familiar with, but if it's an easement, it's either donated or we pay for it. Usually it's donated or it comes to us through a development project. And those easements come with easement agreements, and those spell out the terms of how this land can be used and what we can do there. It will memorialize a description of the property or the easement itself, and that goes to the park board and to Metro Council for approval. So there's, 3, 4, maybe even 5-month process there if we're requiring easements just to make that happen. Moving on. So this project, we recently had a community meeting, and attended, a lot of excitement about this project. What you see in green is the existing Whites Creek Greenway. The far left there is Mullins Park, the loop, and it extends on over to what you see in red, which is what we are planning and will construct with this project. It is funded with capital dollars, and we don't have a cost estimate yet. We're just getting started, but we do have the funds to design it. So we'll take this all the way through construction documents and permitting.
So Cindy, you would put in, is this in the design stage or pre-design stage for this extension?
Well, let's look at our schedule here and kind of walk you through it. So right now, it's design. It's the early part of design. So we have land acquisition, then we go through design, and then construction and a ribbon cutting, right? So right now, this is the schedule laid out by the consultants. It's about 1.5 years. And so a lot happens during then. We start with due diligence. We go out and do our data collection. We're looking at utilities, ownership, other agencies that would be involved, what the permitting process is going to require. A lot of things that happen that we're very busy, and on the surface, nobody sees anything going on, right? We do our initial public engagement during that time. And once that information is collected, then we can move on to schematic design. So schematic is just what it sounds like. It's ideas. It's looking at routing, understanding the challenges, the opportunities. We do, of course, a complete analysis of the site. Where are their views? Where are their issues? Where should we cross a creek? Which in this case, we have to bridge over Whites Creek. Those utilities that I talked about, we have to figure out what the requirements are to work in or around any easements that are in place. We look at safety. We know that this road, West Hamilton, is a heavily traveled and sometimes speeding happening there, no sidewalks, with lots of residential that we're trying to connect to. So we take all that into consideration as we develop both the program and then the design itself. And all that, of course, is informed with public engagement. Once schematic design is complete, we'll move into design development. So that's really doing much more detailed design, beginning to establish cost estimates. In there, we'll have another public meeting. So we've taken the responses from the public. We've come up with what we feel like is responsive to those comments and to the site conditions and all the things that we're trying to achieve. Go through design development.
Can I have a question? Where does the money come from for design as opposed to actually funding the building of the Greenway? Is there monies in Metro budget for that, or is that also a capital?
The capital funding. Capital funding takes care of the design and construction if it's a Metro-funded project. There are other sources, of course, private development, grants. We're searching for other sources of funding, and we'll talk about that when we talk about cost. Any other questions? Grant?
I was just going to ask, when is the next public meeting? I hate that I missed the last one. That's
Well,
in my
we missed you too,
neighborhood.
but we don't have it scheduled yet. It will be somewhere in that late fall, winter timeframe when we've finished our schematics and kind of moving in. But we will definitely let you all know and publicly notice that. The council members in those districts are extremely helpful in getting the word out. So, Jenny, yes.
You may not even know the answer to this question, but are there, what is the average size of like an easement? Are there particular rules around an easement? I've just heard recently people talking about they'd love to donate land to Metro like an easement, but I don't really like, does it have to be larger than this room? You know, like.
That is a fantastic question. So they can be, it's a wide open question. They can be of all different sizes. At the very minimum, it needs to allow us space to build the Greenway. So we're trying now to build 14-foot wide Greenway trails with 2-foot shoulders on either side. We can't always do that in a more restricted, urban, already built out dense area, but that's what we're headed for. I think originally 30 years ago, we were building 10-foot wide trails, which was the norm at the time. And with increased usage, we widened that to 12, and we still do some 12. But because of the popularity and the different kinds of users and trying to give people elbow room, we've moved to 14 feet. They're almost always asphalt trails. We do get a lot of questions about why aren't you using impervious pavement or some other maybe more sustainable materials. And the answer to that is really just a practical answer. We're in floodways if we're following the water corridors. And the materials, at least the porous materials that we have tried or that are standard, those pores have to be vacuumed out periodically. So every time it floods, you get silt and then it's no longer permeable. So it just hasn't proven practical or feasible for us to be able to do that. We've got about 102 miles of greenways now. There's just no way. But we are looking at other kinds of materials, and we are looking on bridge materials, for instance, being more sustainable in terms of longevity. Instead of using wood structural components, we're using concrete or steel, and lighting, where right now we're working on lighting standards. Those are LED, of course. They follow dark sky ordinance. They are electric. We do use throughout the park system some solar lighting, but right now that's where we are with that. Sorry, I'd strayed a little bit, but so the Greenway easements could be as big as the floodways and the buffers. So the floodway plus 75 feet that encompass the floodway buffer, maybe more if we're on a slope and we just can't build a greenway within that space. Could be as narrow as the width of the trail, could be as large as what someone just wants to donate. Ariza Bellevue, we'll talk about in here, is on the Harpeth River. It's a multifamily development that's coming, that will be building a greenway. they're donating a little bit over 20 acres to the Parks Department that will have both the Greenway and then just open space for the public. So we'll own it. It encompasses the floodway and buffers that can't be developed anyway. So it's conserving that space. It's getting people out, in that riparian zone, kind of education there. And then, of course, all the things that come with having a Greenway. All sizes. Happy to talk with anyone that you want to send my way about open space donations. Of course, we look at it. We need to make sure it makes sense, for the use, that it's, there are a lot of things to think about, but always happy to have that discussion. Thank you. Any others right now?
In fact, encourage you to keep your ears open. I think that's the more we can get without having to find the money or find all of the money is a move forward. Thank you, Jenny, for raising that.
Yes. So once we've gone through design development, we move into construction documents. Those are people think of those as blueprints. That's what the contractor is going to take and build the project. And alongside that, we begin to go through the permitting process. For us, because we're in those sensitive riparian zones very often, there are more extensive permitting, flood regulations, those kinds of things that we have to follow. We have the ability to build what we call at-grade greenways. So if we're not adding bridges, if all we're doing is coming in and scraping off enough dirt to lay down the asphalt trail, the permitting is relatively uncomplicated. But if we're doing anything else that can affect flooding or sensitive areas, we go through the same process that everyone else does. We go through a variance process and all the permitting with all the agencies. So again, that's this is from design, beginning of design to walking on a trail, about 1.5 to 2 years for something like this that's relatively simple. Very often the norm is 3 years from start to finish. That sometimes includes that acquisition portion, which can take a while for the right-of-way. So just, that's a long time, I think, in some people's eyes. And I always say, well, a long time compared to what? Like, how much time would you think that it would take? And that's when we get into the discussion about what happens behind the scenes that no one really sees except for maybe at those public meetings. So I just want y'all to be, armed with that information as you're advocating for Greenways and explaining the process. And yes, thank you.
Can't see without these. Okay, so since you brought it up, and I hope I'm not digressing too much, but for these 102 miles or so of Greenway, what is the maintenance burden that we have on those? Like, what's the life of those Greenways once we put them in place?
Sure.
And what are we having to expend?
I'm going to be able to answer that not completely, and our maintenance folks can help me follow up with you, but if we're building them, if they're our own funded projects, we're going to be mowing the shoulders at the very least. If we've done tree plantings, we're going to be caring for those trees. We may be partnering with Metro Water Services on tree installation, and they have a program where the tree maintenance is provided for a couple of years. Then any kind of bridges, we have to maintain those. The lifespan, I'm seeing some now that are needing repair that were built when the Greenway system really started, 25, 30 years, they're ending their life. Asphalt, because we're not driving vehicles on it every day, we don't see the same kind of potholing and other issues you see on city streets, but it does degrade over time. We're paying more attention to where we're planting trees because of root growth and those kinds of things. So our maintenance division right now is they may be finished, but they've been assessing all the pavement in parks, which includes greenways. We're assessing all the bridges, structurally assessing those to see what work needs to be done. So I can let you know kind of what that trend has been. And the reason we're moving to the steel and concrete is so that we have a much longer structure in a usually a pretty difficult place to build. So, thank you.
Cindy, if I may ask, is that regular scheduled maintenance, or do we depend, oh, I'm sorry. Is that regular scheduled maintenance, or do we depend on,
Is it reactionary or planned?
our users to report it when they're out walking on the greenways?
They are regularly mowed, and there's a schedule, and depending on where it is, they have a little bit different schedule, but I think they're at least on a 2-week mowing schedule. I hope I don't have that wrong. The folks who are out in the field every day and see the facilities will create work orders if there's, I don't know, a gap or a crack or a loose board on a bridge. But we also really do hear from our Greenway users, and we encourage anyone who sees an issue to just go to Hub and report it. It comes to us. We have a record. I received a request this morning, sent it over to, just create a work order for a maintenance division, and they organize that and go out and take care of the issues.
Okay.
So it's twofold, but really trail users they know their trail, especially, people who are out on the same ones frequently. They keep us pretty informed.
I see the ones that I walk on, they mow regularly, so there's no issue. But I have begun to notice that the trails themselves, the asphalt, is beginning to deteriorate.
Yes.
And I think it's probably because we've had so much rain.
I think that has a lot to do with the winters that we have, and just like streets, when there's any kind of a crack or hole, that icing will degrade those as well. And age, just age.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One thing historically is that I think a number of, shall we say, comments come in also to Greenways for Nashville, as well as through the park responses, and I assume to Hub Nashville now that issues come in there, and
They do.
I assume that over time you will highlight to us any things that accumulate as problems, and that'd be good to know.
Yeah, I think typically it's what you would expect to see in an outdoor environment that suffers the climate conditions that they're in, but sure. Any other questions about just public projects? I will say, anyone listening, please use Hub if you can, because that does get to us. It is recorded. It helps us collect data. It helps us understand where the stress points are on the greenways, and it helps us respond to the person. Let us know where it is. Give as much description as you can. Give us your contact information. We would love to let you know, if there's something that we really do need to follow up on. A lot of times we do need to follow up and there's no contact information provided. So if you're comfortable doing that, we appreciate that. So I'm going to touch a little bit on the process of building greenways through private development, and then we'll go into some updates and highlight some of these same projects. If we're working with developers, let's say they're developing a project along a waterway and they're going to subdivide, rezone, build a project. We have an ordinance that allows us to acquire the floodway associated with that waterway and the buffers. And then, as I mentioned, if it's a condition that we can't really build a greenway, such as a steep slope, or that's probably the most common, or maybe it's so densely wooded that we would be destroying tree canopy if we couldn't move a little further away, we're allowed to acquire a little bit more space there. And that goes through the Planning Commission, and Ed is so familiar with that process. But, that can take, Ed, I guess, a couple of years. It just depends on the developer and their timeline for moving through the process. We look at whatever their request is, that all that is managed by the planning department. They reach out to all the governmental departments to review these plans. So it's everyone that takes a look at those. And of course, we're looking at greenways. And so if they're building along a planned greenway, then it's very normal now with an SP, so a special project, special zoning, where a developer might be asking for entitlements, or there might be something different in there than just straight zoning, that we talk about, the possibility of not only giving us that easement or, dedicating that required easement, but also partnering with us to design a greenway and build it as part of their development. It's much easier to do that greenway development along with a project than to come back in later and, try to be in a space constructing a greenway. And you'll see in here some really great examples of that kind of partnership have been the Gulch Greenway, both at Asurian and at Frankie Pierce Park, First Horizon Park, the multi-family development there. They're rebuilding part of that greenway so that where previously there were times you couldn't use the greenway unless you had a ticket to a ball game or event. Now that will be open and you'll be able to use the greenway 365 days a year. That's opening this summer. You'll all be invited to that long-awaited ribbon cutting. We've got 2 projects happening out Pennington Bend. Harpeth River, the Ariza Bellevue project that I mentioned, is bringing that greenway. Bellevue Plaza is a redevelopment project along the Richland Creek Greenway. I'll show you that in a sec. All those are bringing greenways to the city. So both conserving open space and building and maintaining greenways. So your question, Brenda, about maintenance, the capital projects, we are almost always doing those ourselves. We are trying as often as possible for developer-built projects or a development that's coming alongside an existing greenway, for them to take over at least the landscape and mowing maintenance, because we would be on different schedules and they're going to be with their maintenance. It just makes sense for that to happen. And we've had amazingly good success with that. So. All right. Well, I'm going to...
Cindy, can we back up for 1 second? So you're talking about the things that go through the Planning Commission. As I understand it, that and it is a greenway that exists, and they've come in for an SP, or they've come in for an SP, and there's the potential of a greenway.
If we have a planned greenway,
and planned, how planned is planned? What does that mean?
planned is through the master plan. So if it's identified in our Parks and Greenways master plan, then it's a planned greenway. So if the developer is participating in that, then we'll go alongside them as they move through their planning commission process. And when they receive all their approvals, then we begin the same process that we're doing on our own through capital projects, only we're doing it through their engineers and development project. So it would still go through, it would have already been through public meetings, honestly, through their process, but we'll go through design with them and work all the way through the phases of design. And then construction, if they, we have to approve the design as staff. We have to approve the construction once it's finished or as it goes along. And then hopefully we're all celebrating together at the end. If those, which they would almost always come with either an easement or ownership, even though they've gotten their planning commission approval and that itself those conditions go to the council for approval, we have to come alongside that with the easement and the easement agreement that goes to the park board and goes to Metro Council for approval. So it's kind of 2 things tracking in order, sequenced along. with those. Ed, did I say anything wrong there, or anything you want to add?
No, I think you did. I think you did a fantastic job. I think it kind of highlights that you have to do these things and kind of spinning a few different plates at once and done in tandem. And as things are coming through the planning commission, it is reviewed as a lot of times, as all of the things are subject to, right? So subject to the future approved at council and subject to the legal entitlements to the land as well.
Thank you. And, we're digging in deep to what the designs are and making sure that it works for us. And there's a lot of, just like within any design project, there's a lot of revisions, there are a lot of conversations, a lot of back and forth, site visits. Just like we were building it ourselves, sometimes it's maybe more time intensive because we have all that front end planning commission process that we're involved in.
Yeah. I think what I always try to have in my mind is how do we get ahead of things? How do we anticipate? How does a developer know to anticipate that this may be a place that a greenway should come or might come? And this may be a much longer conversation, but, when you're saying it has to be in the master plan, it's like, how do we catch these things before they get built on? It's such a big part of what I'm thinking. If you want to.
Yeah, I could briefly touch on that. I mean, if it's a project that already has its zoning, it's a straight zoning project, that's one that we may not always know about. But if it's going through the planning commission process, we'll know because they'll reach out to us as part of the review. The planning department has the master plan identified in GIS. They know what their ordinances are. The ordinances that we have live in the subdivision ordinance. And so that partnership, and I can't emphasize enough the partnerships with fellow metro departments, how important they are in getting any greenway built. Planning in those instances is the first partner that we're dealing with. We're, especially in riparian zones, we're always working with Metro Water Services. NDOT, so often we are in the same space or we cross each other's space, or we're trying to let them, we're trying to accomplish connections to greenways through sidewalks and bike lanes, or vice versa. General Services is the department that measures and regulates the ADA access. We have to be ADA accessible with our greenways. Metro Legal is dealing with us on and public property on all of our acquisitions and any kind of easement agreements that we have. So it truly does take a team. And we couldn't get those done without those partnerships.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to quickly run through some projects. But first, before I forget, Greenways for Nashville has completed the most recent update to the Greenway system maps. You all have those at your seats. We're going to do a little old school activity as we go along here to make sure y'all are opening those up and using those. Amy, do you want to talk a little bit about just, what you all have done and worked for to get, there's a mic, either one of those,
This is
just
Amy.
to produce this latest update.
This is Amy Crownover, who is the director of the nonprofit Greenways for Nashville.
Hi, so good morning. And I'll play teacher's aide as it's necessary. So if I see you struggling with instructions, please know there's no judgment. I know this map like the back of my hand for a lot of reasons. But so Greenways for Nashville, just briefly, the partnership here is that this is probably the 4th or 5th edition of the Nashville Greenway system map. Greenways for Nashville carries the responsibility and secures funding to produce the map. It's a visual of the city parks department's Greenway system. So we work with a cartographer and designers and printers. We have underwriting from generous support from Vanderbilt University. So I want to call them out and thank them again. This is hot off the press, literally. We distribute about 10,000 a year through public venues, the parks department, all of their facilities, and then when we do outreach. So this is like step one. And so what we're going to do, and Cindy, I can be looking on the closer inside. There are two sides, closer in, further out. Closer inside, you'll see a top and a bottom, almost like an Excel spreadsheet, but 1 through 7 across the top, and A through F. Across the both left and right side. And so referring to quadrants, for those of you who ever remember doing maps and driving across the country, this is how we did it. And so
These are a lot easier to refold than this.
yes, and so you can have it right in front of you. Obviously, you can write with a Sharpie on it. We can provide you replacements, but great place, and that's what I do. And the quality of paper is incredible. This was printed by a shop that is in Pennsylvania that does all of the national parks maps, as well as all of the flight maps. So those little planes, same material, that are actually using maps when they're flying around. So I'll take your lead.
Instead of having a big vicinity map up here, I'm just going to direct you to where these are as I talk about them. So the first project is the 440 Greenway at Sevier Park. And let's back up. Let's look at White's Creek Hartman that we just talked about, so you can just find it on the map. You look under A2, so if you use those coordinates, it'll take you right to a green dash line on White's Creek. And that, so you can see the greenway that's already in place and the extension that we are building.
And the dot is the extension.
Yep. So I think we probably covered White's Creek. I'll move on to 440 Greenway at Sevier. So this is connecting Sevier Park to Browns Creek Park and Greenway. And if you look at F4, it's kind of like bingo, F4, you'll find another dashed line. You'll see the community center, I believe, is highlighted on there, and the existing greenway at Browns Creek Park. Note that Browns Creek Park was flood buyout property, and so we constructed that greenway after the 2010 flood. It's interesting, if you go out there, there's a marker that shows how high that water got. It's pretty impressive. This project will begin or end, depending on how you're looking at it, at Sevier Community Center, and then connect over to Gale Lane Park, which was built by TDOT, and then they've made that available to Metro as a park and greenway within that space. And then it follows alongside the interstate. Interstate's elevated. You can see that in the cross sections here. The greenway will be down at the bottom of the slope alongside the interstate. We actually go under it and then follow along Battlemont Drive over to Browns Creek. So this is that project that is in design. We're actually in permitting right now. We're utilizing TDOT's excess right-of-way through their excess license program. And that license agreement is coming to council soon. We're trying to get past the budget deliberations, and that's headed to you all to approve. So please do approve that. That's no cost to Metro. It's an extended, I'm trying to remember if it's a 10 or 20-year lease, but it's a very extended lease. This project involves building a bridge right adjacent to the creek at the connection point to the trailhead at Browns Creek Park. It's about 1 mile long. It's capital funded. Again, here we didn't have to purchase land, so it's making this project more affordable, but it's 1 mile long. It's probably going to be somewhere between $5 and $6 million. It's got a bridge. It's got retaining walls. It will be lit, and we're doing this lighting more and more with our greenways, our new greenways, and we're retroactively lighting some of our other greenways along the 440 is one. Any questions?
And just adding to the map explanation, you'll see that this Sevier to Browns Creek has a green background. And if you look in the legend, that tells you that it's part of the City Central Greenway system versus the Whites Creek that you saw up in the corner doesn't have that green background. It doesn't mean anything other than City Central versus not City Central or
Thank you.
outside of.
Good point. Good point.
So Cindy, just, I mean, I think for our eyes, it helps to take one's vision, you know, the Browns Creek Park, Browns Creek Greenway, and then you see up just northeast of there, the Browns Creek Greenway. So our eyes should be that someday there will be connectivity between those two. And, you know, as we're in the world of connectivity right now, in all kinds of forms, it's just good to start to get your eyes to those now. What year, when, if, how, all of that's a different story, but I just want you to be taking
Sure. And just know that we have 2 active projects in design right now on the 440 Greenway. This is, excess land that's been made available to us. We do still have to go through a license agreement process. We haven't done that on all the segments yet because we have to be pretty far along in our design to obtain those licenses. And so with having one segment built, which is right outside our door, 1.25 miles, this 1 mile segment and another 0.2 of a mile segment, we need to concentrate on completing the design for this whole 440 corridor. And that's not funded yet. So that's something that we'll have in our list of funding needs. The department prioritizes all those. So which ones actually get sent to council, we'll see. But it's certainly one that we want to continue to move forward. As Amy mentioned, it is part of the City Central Greenway, but in and of itself, it's a really important corridor as well.
Cindy.
To Browns Creek to Fair Park as well, like getting the money for feasibility to get down to Geodis, for instance.
The connection to Browns Creek, yes.
That's a little more complicated sometimes.
Well, there's lots of complications for sure. It's not a simple project. We're in a built environment on much of this. It will go beyond where we are right now. The segment that we're working on to connect to Centennial Park will connect us on to the Charlotte Railway Trail project. So you can kind of see the domino effect that we're starting to see here. And ultimately a spur out to Boyd Park, the Greenway at Boyd Park, that will get us connected to TSU campus. So very broad.
Are you all following that on your maps at all? Just
Yes, so on your map, again, Cindy's not looking at it right in front of her. Of course, she provided that, but right below it is a visual of the envisioned City Central Greenway system showing the part that's already built and then the visions that Cindy's referring to. So that's your, big picture, not routed.
So any questions at all about this project or kind of the overall goal there of building out the 440 Greenway? This project and the one that I'm about to tell you about are funded in terms of design and hopefully fully funded in construction costs, but we'll know as we get a little closer to completion on those drawings.
Yeah, Mark answered asked my question and you answered it. I was just in and listening to Jeannie about the connectivity between the two Browns Creek and Fair Park, and that's off of Wedgwood, and that's a pretty little stretch.
It's a pretty good stretch.
Pretty good stretch to connect those from right there, and I was just wondering about the funding. Has that been approved yet? But you answered that already. And
Yes, not yet.
I guess there's funding for feasibility studies and then there's funding for
for the project, right.
Yeah,
I was
I
thinking it was all in one, but.
Yeah.
that's-
Sometimes it is.
I want
Sometimes
to
it
note
is.
That's-
to
okay.
everyone, if you speak, please punch your voice button that turns green so that we're,
Yeah, mine is
Martha's
green.
responding to you, so.
Okay.
it's okay.
Oh, okay, all right, yeah. I was like, I'm usually loud, and now I'm being chastised because my green button is on. No.
So is continuing the discussion of 440, right outside our door, the existing 440 Greenway ends in a trailhead. And this next project that we're designing that you see here on the screen and on your maps under D2 is a 0.2 of a mile extension that takes us all the way down and actually into Centennial Park. And it follows along Centennial Dog Park across the street from us here. That involves using some of the street right-of-way and converting that, taking that out of the street and converting it and using it as off-street greenway. It'll bring landscaping with it. And in conjunction with Phase 3 of the Centennial Park Master Plan construction, there's going to be some entry wall monuments there. And so we're coordinating to make sure all that looks cohesive and inviting. With that connection down to 31st Avenue and the complete street, bike lanes, sidewalks, cycle tracks, that project, if you continued on over to Charlotte Avenue, gets us right at the Charlotte Corridor or the Cheatham County Rail Authority line, which is where we're building that Charlotte Corridor Rail with Trail project.
I just want to acknowledge that the map does include the bike lanes, and I think it's great because you can start seeing how, like for instance, with the Browns Creek connectivity, you can see how it might connect to Leland Lane bike lane, which connects over to 12 South, so you can see how the dots will connect with the Greenway system and then bike lanes and get people to the Gulch, for instance, and that. But you can also see it on this section, how you can connect to 31st and Vanderbilt with this Greenway, not just beyond the 440 section, which is awesome.
So those are the wide brown ones are the complete streets or bikeways?
Those are protected bike lanes.
Protected bike lanes.
Bike lanes.
Okay. You know so much.
All right. So, again, this project is only 0.2 of a mile, so it's tiny but mighty in the neighborhoods and folks that will be connected via Greenway. You can see a cross section there at the bottom. To the right is the dog park. The gray area is the trail, and what's a little hard to tell from this one particular rendering is that part of where that trail is right now street, and so we'll be adjusting that profile of the street. So
One thing too is that this whole area back behind the Parthenon, that this is in essence going to become another entrance to Centennial Park, which is great. And the Centennial Park Conservancy has they're trying to turn their face over towards Charlotte and towards another part of Nashville than their face that's on the other side across West End where they've been focused. So it's exciting that we're starting to be a part of that.
thank you. So that takes us into the Charlotte Corridor Railway Trail project. This one's not showing up yet on your map because we're still in the easement acquisition phase. We're finalizing where we want to see the routing. What we've put on the map are projects that are underway and where we have the space that we need to be. But if you can kind of imagine, if you follow 31st Avenue to Charlotte, right at, let's see, D2, and then look the way this arrow takes you over to the farmer's market. I'll give you a little more detailed look here. This space in gold, green on the screen, going left to right, it follows that Cheatham County rail line. So this is not the CSX line. This is a smaller Rail line doesn't see near the activity that CSX sees. And we're working with that board of the Cheatham County Rail Authority to make space to accommodate the Greenway. One of the benefits that we see for the railroad is that it's going to give people a very designated place to walk. If you go over there now, you'll see people on the tracks, you'll see people in the area. So this will define that space. And I think that's a big benefit for them. Also, right now, the zoning in many cases allows developers to be very, very close to that rail line. So this Greenway keeps people back, creates a safer space, makes it more inviting. It turns it into a park with trees and landscaping. And again, it channels people in a safe way. It's in North Nashville where there is definitely a need for services, park services. Because of that 31st Avenue connector, it's connected into the part of the city's central Greenway. And when built, east to west, gets everyone over to Germantown, to the future Oracle Bridge, over to the other side of the river. It also makes connections to Fisk University, Meharry, and then as well as down to Frankie Pierce Park. And you can see this on the map, and the Gulch Greenway there.
And it pretty much connects right into the farmer's market, so it allows for a nice food access. But it's a really interesting greenway. I mean, it's fascinating if you ever want to take a drive and look at what it will be. It's fascinating. And I believe there's $11 million that has been appropriated in a former capital budget that's ready to be spent.
We're spending it now. We're designing the project and working to acquire those spaces that we need to be, the open space easements and property that we need to be on. And so what you see outlined in green is the rail line itself. It's not the actual routing of the trail, but it's in that area. It's in that space. We're still working through that. All right. So moving on to a couple of our developer built projects, privately built. I don't think I have this coded, but I can code it really quick. I got it. Yeah, thank you. It's not on the map, of course, because it's not that far along, but many of you probably knew about the process of this redevelopment project on Harding. Bear with me. Maybe I can't get to it quickly. Maybe, Amy, I did need your help and turned you away too quickly. Look at E1, and you can see Richland Creek there. This will extend from essentially White Bridge Road. There's a parking spot there. Well, anyway, it starts there, and I'm going to take you through some slides to see what this is going to look like. But this is a great project. This is a project that right now has Kroger built over the creek. It actually has structure in the creek for the Kroger. It's got a huge expanse of paved loading zone area right now behind those commercial buildings. As part of that redevelopment and as part of this Greenway project, those paved surfaces are going to be removed and planted and, made much more environmentally friendly with some really incredible amenities. Joanne, do you mind? It's so hard to see. Do you mind turning the lights out for me? Thank you so much. Just realized I can see this so clearly here and you all can't. This is one of the renderings, the concepts for what this Greenway will look like. On your left is part of the, I think that's mixed use development at this point. That's an idea of what the Greenway will look like as you go along. This is a stairway connection. There's also an ADA accessible ramp proposed here down to a plaza and an overlooking the creek. So all the space that you see there that's green currently on this side of the river is mostly paving and not a place that's pedestrian or bicycle friendly for sure. And this is another view if you were standing at Harding where the Greenway is proposed to intersect and then looking back towards the creek. It shows the development on the right-hand side and proposed landscaping and reconstruction or removing all of that hardscape and returning it to a natural porous situation. So there'll be a minor trailhead at the street and then a major trailhead where this will connect on over to the existing Richland Creek Greenway. So this project too went through a really extensive, very extensive public input process. This was the developer doing all that as part of his project. We've begun to look at design and what that's going to look like in terms of the Greenway. This team does have to go to the Stormwater Variance Committee because they're in the buffer area there. But you know, they're working through that process, and we'll continue to work with them as they develop the design of the Greenway to make sure that it meets our Greenway standards and goals. And then they'll construct it. We'll approve that construction and be a part of that process as it goes through construction. And then the Greenway itself will be in an easement that Metro will hold. And I don't think I mentioned this today, but our easements are in perpetuity. And you know, because we brought some minor amendments before this commission recently, it is a very extensive process to come back and change an amendment. And we take those very seriously. They are, they're easements, but they're public spaces. And we really don't consider changes unless it's something that would improve the Greenway system, that wouldn't be a loss of public space or amenity. And then I'm going to take you to one more. This is the Harpeth River Greenway at Ariza Bellevue. Amy, since you're looking, I will take your help gratefully this time. Thank you.
It would be, you would flip to the other side on the farther out. And if you would look, there are not letters and numbers, but if you would go toward section, there's a circle and a call out, and it's 5, number 5. So it is down in the lower left-hand corner is the blow up of the area Cindy's going to talk about. And you'll see a gap, and it's closing the gap between where the Greenway just stops and then runs across.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So this, what you're looking at is the bend in the Harpeth River, and what you see a bright green is Greenway that is already in place. So you see it at the top of the bend, and then down below the arc that looks like a street, maybe in this view, is actually a railroad, CSX railroad. Our Harpeth River Greenway along Morton Mill terminates there at the railroad. And then on the other side, it connects to what was HYSA soccer complex and does a little loop on property that we lease from the state. So the darker left-hand half of that bend is the acreage that was donated to the Parks Department by the Dorothy, Kate, and Thomas Frist Foundation. And that will be developed as a park. And as part of this residential project and the conditions of their site plan approval through the Planning Commission, they're designing and building this greenway. They're designing and building an underpass under the railroad so that we can extend the Morton Mill Greenway on over into this project. They're donating 20 acres of open space where the greenway will be. They're also proposing to build a vehicular bridge that will give access to their site. And then doing that gives us access to the Frist donated property so that we can continue a greenway on that bend and develop out that park. So this project brings the design, it brings the land dedication, the design of the Greenway, the construction of the Greenway, and access, by nature of their vehicular bridge, gives us access to the adjacent parkland.
So this is both a greenway and an open space.
It is. And you can see on your map how long the Harpeth River Greenway is right now. And being able to make this connection and get beyond the barrier of the railroad, which is really tricky, is a huge accomplishment. I think this has been at least 2 years in the making through the Planning Commission process, and they aren't finished yet. They're still working on their final approvals. And then I'm not sure how long their construction timeline would be, at least 18 months, I know, but probably longer than that, to build what they're building, and alongside that, the Greenway. But the other thing that this sets us up to do is connect all of those neighborhoods south of that railroad that aren't shown on this particular slide, but gives people access, future access, via extension of the Greenway on the soccer complex over to Highway 70 and the Bellevue Community Center and health facilities there and commercial facilities. So what right now requires kind of a roundabout trip in a car. You can hop on a Greenway and be there in 10 minutes on a bike. It also makes a connection, a better connection to a park and ride facility, MTA facility there, as well as road improvements that are going to happen that aren't part of the Greenway project, but that part of all this happening is some much needed improvements to a road that was flooded for a really long time, I think, during the 2010 flood. So happy to take questions about that one.
Cindy, I just wanted to make one comment. I'm trying to give sort of some contextual, and unfortunate for you all, I have a lot of history in Greenways. So, but as you just want to keep you in mind that the original idea was to do Greenways at all our major rivers, and we've moved to some streams over time. But that's one of the reasons you see this long piece here is over time on the marathon of Greenway's history. This is one of the kinds of things that can happen.
Yep, thank you. So just kind of wrapping up, I think we've talked about these. Where are we headed? Just to let you know some of the initiatives that we have going on right now. We've mentioned a few times that we're updating Plan to Play, and we're looking a little more in-depth look in that update on Greenways and how to move those forward. In-house, we're doing our own analysis on all the properties along planned corridors for Greenways, looking at opportunities, where our challenges are, helps to prioritize where we're headed. Obviously, open space acquisition priorities are always a need, and those will be looked at through the Plan to Play process. Working with the mayor's staff and planning, we've provided GIS information for where our trailheads are, and they're looking at how to connect existing and future transit stops as part of the transit referendum, making those connections to Greenways that we wouldn't necessarily be able to have a Greenway trail built, but we could have bike lanes, sidewalks, that kind of infrastructure to get more people onto our Greenways. We're looking at, through this Plan to Play system, looking at who's using our Greenways, how often are they using it, what are they using it for, are they biking, are they walking, are they recreating, are they using it for transit. We'll be looking at safety issues, user conflicts. I mentioned, widening our Greenways out to 14 feet to give people some elbow room for all the different folks who are on there with different uses. We are adding lighting to any urban Greenway that we're building now. That's a component of it. We're looking at how do we address a more rural situation. Is that really suitable for a lit facility or not. Operating hours, we know that urban greenways, when it gets dark, people want to use those greenways. If they've used them to get to work, they want to be able to use them to get home. And so how we'll adjust those through the Parks Board, who oversees those operating functions of Metro Parks. Maintenance, Brenda, as you were asking about, are those things scheduled? We're always bringing maintenance in to give input on our designs to make sure that we're building something, designing something that that they can maintain once it's built. Design standards, we're updating those. Trail etiquette, I think that goes to advocacy and marketing, just reminding folks that we're sharing the space and how best to do that.
Do we share that as well? Do we share the trail etiquette as well with users, or we just expect them to be
I will tell you,
courteous when they're on the trail?
we do share, and I think we're going to be doing a lot more advocacy for that. Greenways for Nashville has done a great job of reminding both pedestrians and cyclists and people with earbuds in and dogs on leashes of just, what the rules are and what common etiquette is. It's very hard to legislate behavior, but I think just through education and reminders, be aware, move over, be courteous. We're all out there on the same trail together, enjoying it probably for the same reasons. So. That is all I have on project updates. Happy to field any more questions that you might have.
That's all you have, Cindy?
That's all I have today.
No, that was really comprehensive. Does anybody have a follow-up question that's dawned on you? I want to take this chance to say that I really encourage you all to think about what it is you need and you want. I mean, I feel like we're still somewhat in orientation mode here, but what you want from these meetings, what will be, I already know some things that I want, which is very early to maybe have a joint meeting with the Parks Board to meet early on with whoever is going to be the consultants on Plan to Play, just some ways that we start to engage early in things. And I hadn't asked anybody about that. It just seems like a good idea because I'm sure they will be coming early to the Parks Board. But and also, I guess one of the things that's been on my mind is sort of more in depth on how we're going to go about our open space responsibilities and talking some about that, the history and what we might want to.
Well, do know that the commission is a stakeholder in the Plan to Play process, so those meetings will be scheduled, and you all will be a very important part of that. You are very important in the first Plan to Play document, and Greenways for Nashville will be involved. There'll be other friends groups. It's a wide public reach.
Right, of course.
Presentation, if I may, Madam Chair, of the strategic plan would be interesting for us to go over that. Someone to make a presentation.
Of the current Plan to Play, which is the Parks and Greenways master plan that's in existence that is going to be updated.
Okay.
And so that's in part what Cindy's talking about is this update process, but it doesn't mean that there's not information from the other one, the one that was done in 2017 that might be informational.
So the recent sketch that we received, that's still in draft form? Is that what we're saying?
Brenda, I think, and you're looking at me, so I'll respond. So Greenways for Nashville, the 501c3, we just did a strategic plan update and established some priorities. So we'll put that out through a process, but we haven't established that yet. It's right now an internal document to Greenways for Nashville.
Okay. Would it be appropriate, I guess what I'm asking, for this commission to see it, to see how the pieces fit together?
I think so, absolutely. Yes, as in that we are the Friends group that is supporting the Greenways division and partnering to the commission. So yes, I think it would.
Okay.
And simply more to share our priorities as directed by largely, what the needs are. So
Okay.
yes, I'm kind of talking in circles, but I think it's a very different piece than the Parks Department's plan, which is Plan to Play, which is obviously massively expands the whole county and all of the different divisions of the Parks Department.
So Greenways for Nashville, I'm sure you all know, but they are an official Parks Friends group. We have multiple Parks Friends groups, and there is a structure around that. And happily, we've always worked very well together. Greenways for Nashville is through advocacy and alignment with the mission of the Parks Department. They've advocated not only for Greenways, but for the Parks Department as a whole, really, especially issues like maintenance and making sure that those things are addressed. So they will be.
So I'm going to interrupt real quickly. We just have a few minutes left, and I think we have needed everything that has been discussed. I want to give Amy a couple of the minutes that we have left to report from Greenways for Nashville. But also, are there any representatives from departments who are here, our ex officio members who have things they are going to want to report? Ed, are you going to want any time?
No, and I think I agree with you with the time we have. We should hear from Greenways.
Okay. And Amy, do you want to report?
Jeannie, before you finish, I just want to say congratulations and thank you again, Cindy, for your presentation, because you always are so thorough in your and everything with these new maps and everything. I've already been privy to those, serving on the other on our Friends Commission.
Thank you. They're great. We are so appreciative for these, and they're fun. It is a little old school in what we did today, but it really does get you into the.
It's like riding a bike. When you look at these maps, D2. Right. Thank you again.
Love
Thank you
the
again for your
circling
presentation.
And I can't wait to go home and draw in all the corridors from the transit, see how it all kind of, fit together. Amy?
So, high level, Greenways for Nashville, what we are busy with right now, I'd ask that everybody mark their calendar for Thursday, September 26th, the 18th annual dinner by the bridge. That is Greenways for Nashville's primary fundraiser, and it is what we use to raise all of our operating dollars so that we can produce and have the staff to distribute and do outreach and work on projects with our raise the money to do the private partnerships. So please mark your calendar. You are all on our email distribution list. You will all receive an invitation to the event, and we hope you are able to join us. It sells out every year, so not only mark it down, but push the button, because we do sell out, and we do have to turn folks away.
One more time, can you say the date?
Thursday, September 26th. 26th is the last Thursday in September. What we've got, what is active right this moment is, yes, the new maps are out, and so my team is working to get these into all of the community centers and the nature centers and the places that folks can pick them up. The public library is also one of our partners who distributes them. If you have a partnership idea, or council people, if you would like them for your constituents, or you have an event, please let me know, and we're happy to supply you with these. They are, again, we know about 10,000 a year get picked up. by the public. We also have enhanced our website, so that is it is highlighted in this map, but you will see segments. Each of the segments now have pictures, so people know what they're going to see. They can click on the picture and they can get an individual map. And a lot of people really do like that piece of paper when they're going to visit. Another touch point is the Trailhead Restoration Project that we have received Park Board approval to proceed with. We have done the Whites Creek Greenway, Brenda, has new trailheads. We did that 2 years ago, and we've done the Stones River Greenway. We are about to install the Cumberland River Greenway trailhead. New maps and refurbishing the existing. We're not putting in new things, we're rather restoring and refurbishing and upgrading the maps. Cumberland River from Ted Rhodes Park all the way to the East Bank, John Siegenthaler pedestrian bridge. In design right now from a mapping standpoint is Richland Creek Greenway. So those are complex, intricate projects, and Cindy reviews everything before it goes to print, but it is a lot of fun, and it really freshens the look, and it gives the new user or the established user just grounding. It's like the teller at a bank. It's your first point of contact, and when you see it and you feel welcome and you can understand or process the map, it really is part of the user experience, and that's really important to us. More folks out there loving the Greenways is a broader base of support for an expanded system, and we know that support is there. Just need to keep them happy and keep them comfortable and give them what they need. So that's basically it. If I had any questions of me, happy. A lot of information today.
And I will say they do hundreds of table distribution and are really great voices out in the community for all of us. And it's a lot of fun to do. So tell Amy if you're up for for doing that. So it'd be great. Thank you, Amy. I want to be sure that each meeting they actually do a chairman's report. And I think that I intersected a number of the things that I would have said, and I'm going to take the last 45 seconds to sort of summarize those. But my main message is I am so excited about everything you heard from Cindy. We have on the plate so many projects that need to be continue to blossom, to be finished, and to be funded, and I think you've just gone a long ways towards giving us the sense of what is on the current plate, the foreseeable future. And then I think a big part of what we've got to also do is to be thinking forward, thinking strategically. I encourage all of you to read back through our ordinance that that established the Greenways Commission, and that also added on the open space, has some different language, but it tells you the things that are our duties and responsibilities. And we can be as active as, we have a lot of leeway. Let's put it that way. And we are part of this department. We're a part of the parks system as a whole, and of course we want to align in every way that we can, but we are also I want to tell you that just yesterday our vice chair and I had a visit with the director of parks, Monique Odom, to get her input into or to see what her vision was and what she wants and needs from us. And it's maybe we can talk some more later, and I've invited her to come and say all of it directly to all of us, and I think that will happen at the right time. But she really, it's about our being great advocates, and I don't think we can be advocates without exactly the kind of knowledge and richness of appreciation of what it is and what it takes and how we spread the word in the most excited, enthusiastic, because Greenways are so beloved. And as each of you know, on a daily basis, someone will say something. And there are people out there with the enthusiasm that we need to harness. We can't do everything that every idea is going to bring, but it's a marathon. That idea may be the thing that 10 years from now becomes the thing. So we are ambassadors, but we are intakers. I mean, I went to the Hartman community event, and this young couple said, "Can I send you an entire plan that my wife and I have about all of Bordeaux?" And I said, "Well, of course." And of course I've sent it, Cindy and they, but this degree of commitment and excitement that's out there. And so, it's up to us to let people know we want to listen, to get everything to Cindy, because prioritizing is what's going to make us successful. But the public really knowing how much we want their input, their hopefully talking at those public comment periods of the council. It takes all of us building this momentum that's going on. So there were a number of other things that she said that I do want to be sure to communicate. She's enthusiastic about land banking that doesn't take too much maintenance, or expectations that can't be met. There's just a series of things. But overall, it's our job to preserve and maintain what we have in respectful, great ways, to move what's in the process, and to see what is the possible for the future and how we move it. If we put a big frame around what's going on. But the enthusiasm, I'll send you out some of the information from the draft of Imagine Nashville, and where it talks about greenways and open space. If you look, the plans, the enthusiasm is there. We're going to get a chance to get more of that input with Plan to Play. We're going to be a big part of the plan for the next 10 years. So that's going to be such a critical part of our what we're doing. And so please feel free to communicate with me anything that you're not getting, anything that you want, any better ways to be engaged for all of you individually, or especially as an active kind of commission, and of course to Cindy anytime. And so we got a lot to do. It's really exciting, but it's great to be on board with you all, with the division, and with the public who might be watching this show. So as it goes, I want to defer to our vice chair.
So my sense is that we have a great council and a great mayor that will be actively looking for projects that we can get funded. And I think it's inherent upon us to make sure that we ask for and get the funding to connect these greenways to priority corridors, connect people to places. People want to connect to community, people want to connect to parks, people want to connect to schools, but we have to get it funded. And we've been a little light on funding, I would say, in the last 5 or 6 years, and it's time to kick it into gear because it's so important for Nashville's future.
Hear, hear. Thank you, everyone. See you in a couple of months if we don't call something in between.
Field trip.
Field trips. Field trips, right?
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.